Welcome to our wrap-up vid on homework set number 3 that was given on paragraph 5 of Azrienoch's book, The Perpetual Wound. I'm really happy that the long delay between installments of this series didn't result in everybody losing interest. In fact, we actually got some new faces this time, so I'm very happy about that. So yeah, let's just get right into the homework set. Okay, question number 1. Can you think of any other propositional attitudes which have this dual nature? Okay, so Randy Helzerman and Lerpa69, we both unfortunately get 0 points for this one. Boo hiss. I just totally could not think of a single other propositional attitude which had this dual nature. My brain was really in vapor lock. Scientific discussion gets honorable mention here for coming up with denial. But, I mean, it's pretty close to, if you deny something, that's pretty close to not accepting it. Actually, Lerpa69 gets honorable mention, too, for pointing this out. But, fortunately, we weren't the only ones to answer this question. Touching stoves came through for us. He came through with really the first answer to this. Care, don't care. Yes, very good example. Touching stoves talked about this in terms of, whether we care or not, whether UFOs exist. But we can also do it something, maybe it's more salient if we do it something like global warming, right? There can be individuals who care about global warming while the society as a whole just doesn't care about global warming at all, right? And this example, I think, really brings out what leaders are. I mean, leaders are somebody who can take their own individual, what they care about and what they accept, and make everybody else care about it and accept. So leaders are the kind of ones who float between these individual and communal senses of the propositional attitudes. Congratulations, Touching Stoves. A very good answer. Bubonic Nate, also on Stickum conversation, gave another very good thing here. Guilt. Yes, I completely agree that guilt is another propositional attitude which has both a individual and a communal thing. And this points out really where my vapor lock was on this. There are some things which individuals can do by themselves, and there's some things which only communities can do, like waging war. I mean, that's something only nations can do against each other. So, because there's actions which can only be taken by communities, it's the communities who actually accrue the guilt or the consequences of these actions. So it's like, just a personal note here. I was an exchange student to Germany back in the 80s. And whenever I met somebody's grandma or grandpa, the first thing they'd always say to me is, "Oh, we had no idea that Hitler was this bad. We really didn't know that he was rounding up the Jews and putting them in the camp." They've definitely felt this communal sense of guilt for the Holocaust, but I really didn't meet anybody who really had this had an individual sense of guilt for the Holocaust. Most of them just accrued it to the society as a whole. Okay, so the lessons learned for question number 1. I was actually surprised at how many propositional attitudes have this dual nature. And I'd like to bring this rather forcibly together with a Margaret Thatcher quote here. She says in one of her speeches, "There's no such thing as society." Yeah, thank you very much for that very insightful statement, Margaret Thatcher. This really points out a gaping hole in Thatcherism, objectivism, and libertarianism. Really, there is a such thing as society. There is a such thing as a dual nature for some of these propositional attitudes. And some of the political theories that are out there really don't take this into effect, and the society as a whole is suffering for it. Okay, on to question number 2. Which is more basic, all right, the communal or the individual sense of this? Now, Lerpa69 had a great point here, okay? What does more basic than mean? Okay, the question really could have been phrased better. She gave several of the possible definitions. More basic is like a building block. More basic is like it influences. More basic is like necessary for learning how to do something. What really does this mean? I mean, depending on what you take more basic than, your answer can actually change. So it's not like the answers that were given were right or wrong, but it just really depends on what you meant by more basic. So let's look at the scoreboard and see how the votes came in here. Okay. April gave a individual and a communal vote here. She gave 2 answers, depending on what sense of more basic than is there. And yeah, note the chiasm that I made from her name there. She likes to spell her name backwards sometimes as Lerpa. Azrienoch in his book says that the individual one is first or primary, and so does scientific discussion. Touching stoves came down on the communal side, and I also agree with him on the communal side. So let's see how this shakes out. Okay, let's take touching stove solution to homework number 2 as a point of departure here, okay? How do we learn the concept of accept or reject? Okay, this is always a very good question to ask in terms of like trying to understand what something means or you know, how would you learn it or how would you teach somebody else what this concept is or how to use this word? It's a very good technique to use, and I think touching stoves use this technique very well here. Okay, somebody teaches us how to use this concept, right? We learn this in a communal situation, right? And when do we use this word accept? Okay, so consider two theists who are talking to each other. When two people who believe in God, they both believe in God, talk about God, they're just like, say, God exists. Or like, you know, George Bush went and talked to a theist about, you know, God told me that I could bring democracy to Iraq, right? I mean, you know, they use objective talk about God when they say this, right? They don't say, you know, I accept that God exists. They just say God exists. But consider a theist talking with an atheist about God, right? When they disagree about whether God exists, then these words like accept start coming in. I.e., when they disagree about the existence of God, they start using mentalistic or subjective talk. You know, it's true for me that God exists, or I accept that God exists, or I believe that God exists, things like this, right? So, it's usually in the context of disagreement, and this is why I think that the communal is more important. Okay, so back to my favorite example here, right? In the individual sense of accept, I started talking about accept when I disagree with myself about what the color of these boxes are, right? And I realized that I may have been wrong. But it's like, can I really learn how to disagree with myself before I learn how to disagree with others? And I really don't think so. I think that you need somebody else who knows more than you do to, like, you know, really rub it in your face that you're wrong before you realize that you can be wrong about things. And you know, learning that people can disagree about something, learning that people have different points of view on the world is a really a step I think that you need a community to do so. And this is why I think that the communal sense of accept is more basic than the individual sense of accept. But like I said, it depends on what more basic is then, and you know, answers can vary on this point. Okay, Azrienoch has a nice video which is related to this point. He makes a similar statement for the word truth. He says the truth really, people only use the word truth when they disagree about something, i.e. when they're arguing about something. Az makes this point for truth, but it could equally be well made for accept. So his video here is worth watching. I'll put a link to it in the comments section. Well, that wraps up this wrap up of the homework. So the reading assignment for next time is paragraphs 6, 7, 8, and 9 in Azrienoch's book, The Perpetual Wound. Yeah, we're going to pick up the pace just a little bit here and cover all of these paragraphs in the next lesson. So I'll see you then. Thanks a lot.